What's going on, everybody? King Friday here. We're here for another TMP-Pro educational series episode. This is going to be a fun podcast. So last episode, we talked a lot about the Avid S6L platform and how it's one of the best in the way of for live and specifically on the road applications. So if you're taking it somewhere, if you're bringing it out to do a show, whether it's a small show or it's the largest show in the world, it doesn't matter. Avid can scale to meet all of your needs. Today, we're actually going to be talking about permanent installs, where it's not just a board that is only good for the road. It's also a great board to actually put in and leave in a specific venue, whether that be a church or whether that be a concert venue or others. It really doesn't matter. Like I said, it scales. So with me today, we got a lot of really great guests today. So from TMP, we've got Gene Mulcahy. So say hi, Gene.
Hey, everybody. How's it going?
Awesome. Great. And we also have today, again, we're happy to bring him back, Matthew Lawrence from Avid. Say hi.
What's up, guys?
Awesome. Yeah, this is going to be a great show. So I want to just address very quickly, just sort of an elephant in the room. So Matthew, you guys have actually sort of seen a little bit of change in ownership here in the last couple of months. So tell us a little bit about it. So STG, they came in, and you guys are partners now.
Absolutely, and we're very excited for the partnership. We're very excited for what the future holds, and looking forward to a lot of great things coming up.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think everybody should be really happy with this. This is going to give them a lot more leeway to be able to continue to innovate, continue to make great products and keep things supported. It's going to be great. So no, I'm excited, but I just wanted to bring that up. People talk about it. So I definitely wanted to bring that up and reassure everybody.
Absolutely.
We're excited about it. That's awesome. So I think I also want to bring into the conversation so the SC48. So for those of you who don't know, it was sort of one of the predecessors to the S6L line, and it's a line that it's sort of synonymous with Avid and Live. A lot of people love it, but there's no direct sort of upgrade path where it's like, well, if you had an SC48, well, the new one is this. But there's a reason for that, in the fact that there is so much more. There's just so much more innovation and technological advancement that has been put into the S6L. I would love to know your guys' thoughts as to, for somebody who might have an SC48 or is used to an SC48, how would you sort of reassure them to say that it's like coming to the S6L platform is a good idea? You should still do it. I'd love to hear your thoughts, guys.
Go for it, Gino.
All right, cool. Yeah, you can say that there isn't a direct replacement, but there truly is. And again, once you're getting into Avid, you have to look at it as an overall investment, quite frankly. Now, we all had the challenges with SC48 where, we had X amount of inputs, X amount of outputs. With S6L now, you are able to fill, as Matt would know, you're going to be able to fill pretty much anything that you're going to get thrown at you, scale, and it's scalable. That's the biggest thing with Avid. It's scalable. What does the job entail? What is the venue? Is it a duo tonight? Is it an orchestra the next night? Is it a talking head? That's the biggest thing that you're getting with S6L is the fact that it's fully scalable, and you're not going and thinking, "Oh, I wish I had." You're never going to not have what you need with an Avid solution, quite frankly, and that's the beauty of Avid, quite frankly.
Absolutely, Matthew, thoughts?
No, Gino said it very well. I think the idea of if you're used to the platform. Of any of the legacy products, right? Especially, the SC48. I can't tell you how many people have had that, a USB stick for that particular desk. And the fact that you can say, oh, this is what I used to, I know that, on this is where I used to have my rotaries for the SC48. The idea that you can put your show file on here and they're going to pop up very similar here. That's where the similarities are. So there's not a direct replacement, but if you've been on venue software, you understand it, and it's easy to move on to the next thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's the main thing, is that it's like you're staying in the same ecosystem. It's not this wild jump that it's like, oh yeah, well I'm not familiar with any of this anymore. It's like, no, you're still an Avid family. You're still, Avid family of products. It is like it's a simple platform to be able to understand and to integrate a lot of your original existing workflows. But I actually want to hit a quote here. It's from Kevin Harvey, and he runs sound of the Cabaret Jazz at the Smith Center, and he said this about the SC48. Just like, which obviously you can't get anymore. But he said with the SC48s, we didn't have enough inputs to do the shows that we were doing. When we had a 60 input show, you had to use a sub console, to send stems up the stage, which is far from ideal. Then he said also we couldn't load enough plugins because there wasn't enough DSP on an SC48. And he said I tend to use a lot of plugins, so it was getting to be really awkward with the SC48s. But that's the brilliance of the S6L platform, is that I feel like that is the perfect client for this, is that somebody who, it's like, I need to expand, I need more DSP. It's like, oh, in this specific show, I need more IO, I need more processing power. It's like, I mean, sort of tell me about that, guys. It's like, I feel like this is the perfect example of the type of client who would want to move over to S6L.
You want me to go with that one, Matt? Because I'd love to start, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, please do. I love your excitement. Go for it.
No, I hear what he's saying, but the fact that with S6L, what you get in the desk to start with, you're going to find yourself using less and less plugins. It sounds good out of the chute. It's a totally different sound field, personally, than what the original console sounded like. The stereo field is incredible. And what you get in the desk internally is going to take care of 3/4 to 95% of everything you're going to need to do in a show. So worrying about DSP and all this other things nowadays, quite frankly, with S6L, you're never going to have to worry about that ever.
That's amazing. Matthew, thoughts? I don't have to throw it up to you. I don't have to throw it up to you.
No, we'll just keep the same rhythm going. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, everything that Geno said is spot on. The idea that any product, right? I mean, how many electronics do we have sitting around where we want the latest and greatest because of whatever, right? This has a better feature set. It does things that the other one doesn't, so on and so forth. And that's really what it's about. I mean, technology it grows so fast that if you were looking at, the SC48, the profile, any of those, what you can accomplish was earth shattering at the time, but that was 15 years ago. So I guess that's about right, 15 years ago. So now we're talking about the S6L, and what it can do. It is hands down more. It sounds better. It feels better. The workflow's easier. All these things. And that's why you want to upgrade. You want to upgrade your electronics because you know that they are doing better things than what your previous did. This is just a much more expensive, larger electronic, but in the same mind frame, that's exactly what you're trying to do. You're trying to do more than what you did before with the technology provided, and that's what the S6L is doing.
I love that. I think that's great. Yeah, I don't think I need to add anything to that. That was amazing. So I want to move into some of the specific reasons. So we've already said that it's like, yes, obviously it's like this is newer. There's more expandability, like we talked about in the last episode. Obviously, being able to add more IO, add more DSP as needed, to be able to scale to whatever type of venue you're using. But I want to hit a little bit, and we did talk about this last episode a little bit, but the offline editor for show files, I think, is really a unique one, that in relation to a virtual sound check. Tell me a little bit about that concept and how that could be valuable to venues that are considering S6L.
Well, it's simple. I mean, it's all about workflow nowadays. If you're an engineer, it's all about workflow. Okay, I've got a couple hours on the bus. I'm going to the venue. I want to update my show file. I want to be able to have the desk in real time in front of me on a computer walk in, throw in my USB, and be done. Avid has always been the one at the forefront, being able to take, be it SC48, be it Profile, be it S6L. There's never been a time where you've had to worry about having, oh, do I have that right version of software for this console? Do I have this converter software? Do I have this? Do I have that? You cannot put a price tag on the fact that the workflow with Avid saves you time, and time is what you usually don't get enough of in a day. And Matt will echo that to me anytime. If I'm on the airplane, I can pull up my console. There we go. I had to do this. The singer didn't like this. Let's do that. And it can, it transfers over to a venue. We needed to push audio to this different breakout room, and we needed to change a couple things we needed to add to it. I don't have to have the console in front of me. I can have the editing software and go to town. That in itself is worth the investment.
Guaranteed.
Yeah. That's there. I don't think there's anything that needs to be said more about the offline editor. But when it comes to virtual soundcheck, the idea that you can sit with, House of Worship is a perfect example, right? You have tons of volunteers where sometimes it's intimidating to mix when a band is playing, right? When a band is on stage, sometimes it's either you can't hear it or you're scared that something's going to happen. And the idea that you can train volunteers and say, hey, this is exactly what this does here. Do you hear what this sounds like? Is this make sense to you without any repercussions? And then you can go back. And one of the things, like I've mentioned before, I think it was on the last episode, is the fact that we're one of the only companies that you can hit the transpose button and actually start, stop, and play your Pro Tools from the desk. So here we are saying, okay, we're going to start the song. Do you hear this? Do you hear what's going on? Oh, you don't hear it? Hold on a second. Let me restart that. Stop, start. Okay, do you hear that? So you can sit there and listen and be able to train somebody more than any other way of doing it actual live. So being able to basically not only do your own homework, but be able to provide a tool to be able to, as a training tool, to get people on board before they actually mix a live show. That's what virtual soundcheck's about.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've had this actually happen before, and it can lead to a lot of strife. I think we talked about this a little bit the last episode. I've been a church drummer for a very long time, and it's like I've actually seen like fights break out, like very loud disagreements about how the mix is, like in the middle of like rehearsal. And it's like, this is not the time or place. The band needs to go. Everybody needs to go. It's like, and it's just not good. So this allows you to be able to say that, and especially like in House of Worship, I think it's a really valuable thing, because it's like you said, volunteers. It's like, yeah, some venues, it's like have, newer engineers or stuff, but specifically with churches, it's like volunteers is almost a lot of times is all they have, to be able to run Sundays day to day. So I think being able to use virtual soundcheck for that, to be able to solve that, like you said, to say that it's like, this is a no pressure environment. You can, you're not going to mess anything up. I think that's valuable.
There's two more things I want to say real quick about virtual soundcheck that I was just thinking about. One, we'll stay in the House of Worship situation. So we obviously, there's the reason why at least the Christian faith is around. We have Jesus' birthday coming up. So we're sitting here and we're going, okay, we're going to put on a Christmas show. And what's interesting is that I know, Gino, you're doing some rehearsals as well, but we did one last Thursday, and then we have one tonight as well. And between those two, the music director and the worship pastor came up to front of house, and we were talking about the note transitions with autotune. And some of the note transitions were a little bit different than a normal standard major. So it's not just a D. It's actually, the first half is, I'm making things up at this point, but the first half is D and the next one is D flat, or so, I don't know.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yep.
So the idea that there is different notes, and I'm sitting there with these two individuals saying, hey, do we hear this? Is this what we're hearing? Oh, actually, let's put the first half at this and move the notes here, and then let's go over here. So I'm working with the music director, I'm working with the worship pastor to be able to improve the mix for Sunday. And that is an invaluable tool in virtual soundcheck in itself. right? So it's not just a volunteer base, it's not just your own homework, but it's being able to go with the other people that might be on stage, kind of like you were saying, Jordan, be in the band and say, no, this is actually what we hear, right? And then the second one I was just going to bring up really quick is I was mixing a band, and the drummer said, "Hey, I got a second snare." I said, "Okay, sounds good." He goes, "Is it okay if I can hear that real quick?" And so, we record it. Okay, here's hit record, and he plays, the snare a little bit. And I hit stop. Puts the other snare on there. Okay, here, and then literally flip it over because it's a one button, right? We flip it over, and then I press play, and he's like, "Okay, I hear that snare. Okay, I hear that snare." So being able to immediately have a proof of concept of sound and say, this is what it sounds like. Do you like it? And then we move on, because sound is so subjective, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we can sit here and say, oh, it sounds great or it sounds terrible. But at the end of the day, the person on stage, we're trying to replicate what they're trying to achieve. And so if we can let them hear what we're doing and be able to say, is this what you're trying to achieve? Yeah. I have the tools to do it. I have the knowledge to do it. But am I representing what you're trying to achieve at the highest level? And that's what virtual sound check's able to do as well.
Yeah, and not every, and I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. It's like, I don't think that this applies to anybody in here, but I have been in situations where it's like the person that knows the technology is not necessarily a musician themselves and not necessarily a mix engineer. They know how the hardware works and how, like, that part, but they're not focused. Like, their main focus is not making it sound as best as it possibly can. They may not have that capability. It just may not be their focus. I've seen it before where it's like they know everything inside and out of how the console works. If you ask them to make a great mix, that's not necessarily their forte. I've actually seen it where the worship pastor has to go over and help the sound engineer, sort of, get it to sound like how he wants it to sound. So that, your story specifically, it's like, yeah, is that ideal? No, but the S6L allows that to be something that is possible, which I think is great. As we move on, I think I want to talk a little bit about, so when we talked a little bit about it with Autotune, but some people may not be super either familiar with it or keen on mixing with plugins, but that's one of the main features of switching to S6L, is that you have this wide range of potential new tools in your tool belt to be able to, to mix your sound. So I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on mixing with plugins and why that's valuable.
I'll start.
I got to give this one to Matt. I got to let Matt start, please. Perfect.
So, I come from the world of keep it simple, stupid, right? So the more simple the mix, I think the better. I mean, I can't tell you how, and this is going to be a two-part, right? The idea that I've listened to people's mixes before, and it's like, it just sounds like it's going through a pinhole, right? And it's like, why does it sound so? It just sounds like it's been compressed and beaten up. And the first thing you start doing is just taking off all the plugins, right? You start taking off all the processing, and all of a sudden the mix just opens up, right? So I think it's with anything, back to your point, Jordan, the idea that the tools are there, right? And there is a lot of tools out there that are phenomenal, and plugins are one of them. And if you use it the right way, it's a great tool to have, right? I mean, I was just trying to think. Autotune's one of them, but like a C6. A C6 is a multiband compressor, right? So the idea that you're going to sit there and say, on this, maybe this singer, every time they specifically hit like 500, all of a sudden, it starts bogging down the mix. Well, having a multiband compressor where 500's there, maybe 2 5s there, maybe I'm just adding different bands of this said multiband compressor. But the idea of, okay, I know what I'm doing. I know that in these particular frequencies, I'm able to notch them down at a certain rate, and it's actually smoothing the vocal out, right? But as we're talking about this, I can't help but say, know what you're doing before you put it in there, right? And the S6L is definitely not the smallest desk. It's not the least expensive desk. It is, it's up there in the professionals are using this, right? And the professionals are using it to be able to teach maybe the guys and gals that are coming up, right? That's great. But at the end of the day, there's a tool out there. Just make sure you know what you're doing. And a plugin is a perfect example because you can get yourself in trouble.
I agree, and I think what you just mentioned, about the next generation is that I think, at least with my generation, it's like I came from from recording. It's like that's what I originally went to school for. It was through recording. It's like but moving into doing some live production and things like that, it's like I personally was still more comfortable with a mouse and keyboard and the plugins that I know to fix certain issues instead of learning a brand new hardware interface. So I think for the new generation, that if that's something that they're more interested in, is using plugins, is like I said, as long as you know exactly how to use them and you're not overusing them, it's like there's an avenue here to allow them to continue to use hardware or software plugins instead of the processing directly on the board. But I love what Gene said, is the fact that it's like, but you might be surprised at how few plugins you actually need to use when you're using an Avid S6L, because it's just going to sound good from the beginning. So I think that's great.
Well, let me echo this to you, is that we got to stop mixing by cartoons and we got to use our ears. What sounds good? I can't tell you how many times you walk in and you fix it like Matt said. Shut it off. What does the source sound like? You know what? Maybe we need to move that mic on that cabinet to make it sound better from the source. With Avid, whatever you put in, you're going to get out, and that's the thing. It's truth. So you got to be mindful. Trust your ears. Trust what you're hearing. And start with less. You'll probably get more.
Guaranteed. So I want to talk just a little bit as we close, the types of venues that are choosing this as a permanent install solution. There are a lot of options, but it seems like the main one that a lot of people are choosing is the S6L. So I'd love to know from you guys, like, what are the types of venues that are doing this? What are the problems that they're trying to solve? And how are they seeing the S6L as a solution?
The biggest ones I'm seeing, are House of Worship, of course, but also the casino world. Filling writers is a critical part to their job. And most of those houses are legacy houses, being that they had profiles or SC48s. It was a natural progression and an investment for them to go to S6L. So anybody coming in off the bus with a show file from a profile or even an S6L, their day is just workflow. It's just workflow, time management, workflow. So that's where I'm seeing most of these things going into.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I think that to add on to that, there's casinos, there's universities, but the more and more I see churches going into it, right? The churches, the idea that you can make it as easy or complex as you want, right? The idea that you can, get just a blank layer and nothing's on it, right? So there's nothing on any screen, and then I can just sit and say, over here, I want to be able to drop, a couple things on here, right? So I'm dropping them on. I could even make it better over here to where I'm just dropping, certain things onto this. And I can say, okay, I want to make sure that my pastor's vocals here. I want to make sure my guitars are here. I want to make sure this is here. And then take out all the fluff, right? So if you had, a lot of churches have volunteers, and the idea that you can make it as easy and less complicated as possible, and then start building on that structure, right? Start building on it is super simple. Let's just start with the basics and then start adding on to it. When the teaching tool that is in front of you, the idea to be able for it to be scalable and have scalability is very important in the house of worship. So the question was, where do I see it? A lot of house of worship because of that reason.
Absolutely. And I think you guys probably have seen the meme of in a lot of house of worship, the makeshift limiters, if you know what I mean, of taking a screw and a little plate and putting it on the mat. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's a real thing, and it's like, hopefully all of those are not real and hopefully most of them are jokes, but it's like, but that concept Yeah, unfortunately, probably they probably are.
I think they're because they're all analog.
I've seen it.
I think they're for real. Yeah, absolutely.
But again, that is the brilliance of this, is that you can set those limitations. You can set and take it as far as you want to go, especially in House of Worship, where, like you said, they're working with potentially with a lot of volunteers that don't know everything right out of the gate. But Avid allows you to be able to say it. It's like you can grow along with it. It's like if you start with the best of the best like this, it's like you can grow into it, and at all of your steps of your journey, it allows you to be able to do that. I think it's great. So yeah, I think this has been a really great conversation, everybody. I think this allows people to sort of know, I mean, over both of these episodes, it sort of allows them to be able to say that it's like, okay, whether you're on the road, whether you're installing this in a permanent installation like a venue or a church, it doesn't matter. That Avid S6L has sort of revolutionized how live sound in general is going to go, in the future. It's like more people are using the live sound in the way of recordings, creating content and things like that. It's like, again, Avid has been at the forefront of recording, for many, many years now. And this, this is no exception. So I think it's pretty clear to everybody now after the last couple of episodes that it's like, if you're looking to put in a new system, either in an install or on the road, it doesn't matter. Avid S6L completely has you covered in everything that you could possibly want. So thank you guys so much for coming in and talking about this. I think it's been a really great conversation.
Yeah, thanks, Jordan. Appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So if you guys are interested in potentially getting one of these for yourself, definitely reach out to the fine folks at TMP. They would be happy to direct you in the right way to be able to figure out what it is that you should be able to have in your S6L system, because there are lots of different parts. They can walk you through the entire process, or you can contact the fine folks over at Avid, like Matthew, to be able to walk you through it from that perspective. But thank you so much for watching the TMP Pro educational series. I've been King Friday, and I'll catch you on the next one.